We have an interesting peek into the gaming industry today as the GDC Europe has just released their annual State of the Industry report, and this data is gathered from surveying of 800 industry professionals from Europe who have attended a GDC event in the past. So while this is by no means indicative of the entire gaming development population, it still gives us a really interesting insight into games development and the minds of developers. And the very first question which they were asked is which platforms they are currently developing a game for, and PC is heavily in the lead here, PC/Mac to be exact, and 61% of developers currently working on a game for PC, with 46.9% working on one for smartphones or tablets, with consoles lagging fairly far behind. 29.6% of them said they were making a game from PS4 on PS4, and 25.7% said on Xbox One. However, with the next question, which was about where is your next game actually releasing, so it could be coming out tomorrow, this is not necessarily one that's still in development, could be done just heading towards release, the percentage of consoles rose sharply. 36% said their next game will be out on PS4 and 30% on Xbox One. Now this trend does continue for Sony with the very next question, which is basically asking them which interested them most as developers as a platform. PC was still in the lead here with 59.77%, however the PS4 was pretty nicely ahead of the Xbox One at 41.51%, whereas the Xbox One itself had 27.67%. As for smartphones, they were more interesting than tablets, and VR headsets were far more interesting than AR headsets. Now, speaking of virtual reality, they also looked at what VR headset developers actually prefer, what interests them the most, and that sort of thing. But the first question they actually dealt with for VR was which VR platforms is your current game currently making development for? You know what I mean, got that all mixed up, but what platform are they currently developing games for VR? So, with PlayStation VR, only 11.8% of developers said they're making a game for this particular headset, whereas the Vive and the Rift were very close, with 22% for the Vive and 23.1% for the Rift. So, this could be indicative of the technology, or it could not. Of course, it isn't out yet, however, I have no doubt that dev kits are in the hands of developers at the moment, because of course the VR headset for the PlayStation 4 is out this October, so perhaps it doesn't hold as much interest for them because obviously it doesn't have the power of a high-powered PC behind it, so naturally they're going to have to compromise on like graphics and other such things, so perhaps it doesn't interest them as much in that regard. It still interests them, of course, but it does show again the trend with the preference for PC. However, things went better with the question about platform interest. Now this is where we get interesting, as of course when they're not currently developing a game for PlayStation VR, they are still interested in it. So perhaps it just shows that look, they're focusing on the Vive and the Rift because they're actually out now, and then they're going to do the Vive later, as PlayStation VR earned 33.57% interest, pretty close to the Oculus Rift's 34.15%, but far behind the Vive at 50%. They were also asked about their confidence in the overall virtual reality market. Overall, European developers are still confident in that market at 68.8%, although they were more confident last year when they said about 71.7% were confident. When they were asked about prediction on when VR and AR headsets will be present in 10% or more of Europe's households, 32.6% answered with 2020, 86.7% with 2030, and 8.5% with never. Now, they also spoke briefly about the funding choices for European developers, and the interest in crowdsourced funding like Kickstarter or Indiegogo or other such platforms seem to be fading, with only 28.8% planning to use it for their future games, down from 34.2% last year. Now, perhaps this is a show of the sort of shake of faith that we had recently in Kickstarter, or perhaps these indies or these developers just have no interest. They already have a publisher. They don't need to worry about Kickstarter and that sort of thing. They're free to make the games they want to make with the publisher they have. There's no reason for them to go to Kickstarter. Obviously, Kickstarter is very much a platform for games that just would not be made without a publisher. Sometimes they find a publisher thanks to Kickstarter, that sort of thing. But obviously, we've seen many games come out that probably wouldn't have come out thanks to Kickstarter if you already have a publisher or the funds necessary. And obviously, it's not necessary to actually put it on there. So it could be indicative of the sort of waning interest from both the consumer side and the developer side, or it could just be a momentary fluctuation, and once we see a big success once again for Kickstarter, say for example with Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, we might see another surge. We just don't know, but still a really interesting glimpse into the gaming industry there. I hope you found it as interesting as I did. Thank you very much for watching. Sorry about my fumbles there, but hopefully you enjoyed it anyway. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.